Three people were executed in Kentucky. Harold McQueen Jr., July 1, 1997. Following the reintroduction of the death penalty in the U.S. in 1976, he was the first criminal to be executed by the state of Kentucky. McQueen was given a death sentence on April 8, 1981, for the January 17, 1980, robbery of Rebecca O'Hearn, an unarmed store clerk that resulted in her shooting and murder. McQueen entered a mini-mart in Richmond, Kentucky on January 17, 1980, with the goal of robbing the establishment. He was with his then-girlfriend Linda Rose and his 19-year-old half-brother William Keith Burnell. The three of them had spent the afternoon heavily drinking and using substances. McQueen was high on Valium and had consumed Mary Jane, alcohol, and other narcotics concurrently throughout the day when he and Burnell entered the store. Rose remained in the car, but McQueen and Burnell, armed with .22 caliber pistol, entered the business. Rebecca O'Hearn, the store clerk, was the only person there. She was 22 years old. O'Hearn was given the instruction to empty the safe and cash register by McQueen and Burnell. After that, she was fatally shot by McQueen twice, once in the back of the head and in the face at point-blank range. After removing and packing the store's security camera in a bag, Burnell and McQueen departed the establishment with the camera, $1,500 in cash, and food stamps. They then disposed of the security camera in a nearby pond. Police searched McQueen and Linda Rose's trailer after they were taken into custody shortly after the murder on suspicion of stealing something unrelated. The murder weapon and the bundle of cash and food stamps from the store that McQueen and Burnell had looted were among the evidence that the police found there that connected McQueen to the killing. Burnell and McQueen were put on trial together for capital murder and robbery. On March 16, 1981, a little more than a year after O'Hearn's murder, their trials got underway. The jury returned a guilty verdict for McQueen and Burnell on March 29. The jury also recommended the death penalty for McQueen's charges since they thought he was the primary suspect in the crime, but they also recommended a 20-year term for the robbery. The jury found Burnell not worthy of capital punishment, and instead they handed down a 2-decade prison sentence. In 1988, Burnell was paroled. McQueen converted to Catholicism while he was a death row inmate. 3 days before his death, he consented to give a 19-minute videotaped speech titled "It Could Happen to You," in which he talked about his upbringing and his decline into drugs as a young adult. He also acknowledged that it was unlikely that he would be granted a parole. Approximately a year after McQueen's execution, that footage was made public. On July 1, 1997, McQueen was executed in the electric chair at the Kentucky State Penitentiary in Eddyville. In his final statement, McQueen stated, "I'd like to apologize one more time to the O'Hearn family. I'd like to apologize to my family because they're victims as well. I'd like to thank everybody that sent me cards and letters and prayers. Everybody that sent me that, tell them to keep fighting the death penalty." McQueen was declared dead at 12:07 a.m. Edward Lee Harper Jr., May 25, 1999. Edward Lee Harper Jr. was put to death in Eddyville for the deaths of his adoptive parents. Harper had stated that he would rather die than suffer through the agonizing torment of life behind bars. In Jefferson County, Edward Lee Harper was found guilty of killing both Edward Lee and Alice Harper in 1982 in order to receive their $85,000 estate. He shot both of his parents with a .38 caliber firearm while they were in bed on February 19, 1982, early in the morning. After being fired from his machinist position on December 1981, Harper was eligible to inherit his father's $86,000 life insurance policy. During his trial, he stated in his testimony that his father had urged him to shoot him and his wife since the senior Harper couldn't stand to put her in an institution due to her mental illness. On the day of his execution, at 5:30 a.m., Harper was woken up for breakfast. He didn't eat lunch. It was 3:15 p.m. when he had his last meal. I couldn't find what he had for his final meal. On May 19, he was relocated to a cell around 60 feet from the death chamber from his cell in the death row housing unit, where he had resided since his incarceration on December 6, 1982. He had at least 2 jail guards stationed outside his cell to keep an eye on him all the time. Harper's last words were directed to his son. "I love you, and I'll be waiting for you on the other side. I'll be waiting for you, boy. That's all I have to say." Marco Allen Chapman, November 21, 2008. The last person put to death by the Commonwealth of Kentucky was Chapman. On November 21, 2008, he was executed at the Kentucky State Penitentiary in Eddyville by lethal injection. Chapman knocked on Carolyn Marksberry's door on Weldon Way on August 23, 2002, somewhere between 4:10 and 5:49 in the morning, waking her and requesting to use her phone. Carolyn gave Chapman access. In the past, Chapman had assisted Carolyn with several home remodeling projects and played cards with her family. According to Chapman, he and Carolyn had been involved in a sexual relationship for about a year, and he was aware that Carolyn's husband, Chuck Marksberry, was employed outside of the country. Although Chapman acknowledged carrying a knife when he entered Carolyn's house, he claimed he was simply planning to have consensual relations with her. According to him, Carolyn became angry when he told her he was intending to steal from her after they had consensual sex. Carolyn gave Chapman all of her cash, roughly $120, and all of her credit cards. After that, Chapman essayed her, bound her hands with duct tape, and tied her to the bed frame. Before assaulting Carolyn, he utilized the cord he had cut from her vacuum cleaner and apologized to her for doing so. Chapman repeatedly stabbed Carolyn, shattering 2 of her knives in the process and even going to the kitchen to get more. Chapman attacked Carolyn's children after stabbing her a total of 15 times with a knife that broke off in her chest. During the attack, Cody, the 6-year-old son of Marksberry, entered the bedroom after hearing the loud noise and informed his mother that he had had a nightmare. Carolyn urged Cody to switch on the light and go back to bed so he wouldn't be terrified anymore. Cody, on the other hand, went to his 10-year-old sister, Courtney Sharon. Cody reportedly stated, "I think Mom needs help. Mom is injured." Her mother's screams for help had already woken Courtney. Chapman emerged from the bedroom and was met by Courtney and Cody. He informed them that they needed to call for an ambulance because their mother was injured. After that, Chapman assaulted Courtney Sharon. He slashed Courtney's ear instead of her throat. The girl collapsed to the ground, acting dead. When Courtney peeked, she witnessed Chapman stab her brother Cody before Cody fell to the ground. Then Chapman went to kill Shelby in her room. 7-year-old Shelby Sharon attempted to resist, but he also cut her throat. Carolyn Marksberry listened to the horror, still bound to the bed. She heard her children screaming. Courtney informed Cody that she was seeking assistance. "I have to go get help," Courtney said, grabbing Cody's hand. The reply from Cody was, "No, don't leave me." "I'll be back in a minute," promised Courtney. "I'll be coming back." Courtney bolted to a neighbor's house through the back door. Chapman heard the bang at the rear door after killing Shelby and walked outside. It was then that he noticed Courtney Sharon had vanished. After removing further items from the residence, Chapman left. Carolyn Marksberry was left alone and bleeding when he left. She pulled through her shackles and wrenched free from the vacuum cord that was holding her to the bed. Carolyn eventually made her way to a neighbor's house after having to crawl over Cody's dead body. Carolyn went up to the neighbor's porch and banged on the door with her head. Because of her injuries, 10-year-old Courtney Sharon was sent to Cincinnati's Children's Hospital. Carolyn Marksberry was critically ill with multiple stab wounds and a collapsed lung. She had serious wounds, including incisions to her trachea and neck. She had emergency surgery for 5 hours. About 8 hours after the attack, at 12:30 p.m. on the same day, Chapman was taken into custody in Shrewsbury, West Virginia. He said the guilt was too much and he couldn't bear living like this for the rest of his life, so he requested to be executed. For his final breakfast, he ate pancakes, fried eggs, sausage patties, and milk. His last meal was a 32-ounce medium rare sirloin steak, 20 butterfly shrimp, tossed salad with ranch dressing, iced tea, and a banana cream pie. His final statement was the following: "I don't know why I did the thing that I did, and I know the hate of me over that night must be overwhelming. But Carolyn and Courtney, you have to know that wasn't who I was or am. I am not a monster, even though I did a monstrous evil thing. That is why I give my life willing as well as quickly, in hopes that you know how truly sorry I am. I hurt and ache daily for the loss I've created in the Marksberry's family, but I also hurt. I don't know if I deserve heaven after what I did, but I pray with all of my heart that I find some sort of peace and happiness after my last breath." On his execution day, Chapman murmured, turning to face the family's chamber through the two-way mirror on the wall. About 20 people, including the grandfather of the murdered children, Gary Sharon, were in the gallery watching the execution. With tears in his eyes, Chapman pleaded for forgiveness, his voice faltering. Chapman's final words were, "Carolyn, I want you to know I am truly sorry. I don't know why it happened. This is the man. I am willing to give my life." Chapman was executed on November 21, 2008 by lethal injection in the previously unused new chamber of the Kentucky State Penitentiary in Eddyville. At 8:15 p.m., the prison warden Tom Simpson pulled back the curtain to reveal Chapman to the press. His arms were bound at right angles, perpendicular to his torso, to a gurney while he lay on his back. His forearms were all filled with needles. A white sheet covered him up to his chest, and he wore a red t-shirt. Chapman had obviously aged over the past few months, according to one witness. Tom Simpson gave the order to start Chapman's lethal three-drug cocktail flowing into his veins at 8:20 p.m. Sodium thiopental, potassium chloride, and pancuronium bromide were the three medications. Chapman lost consciousness after taking sodium thiopental. At 8:22 p.m., Chapman took a few shallow breaths, swallowed a few times, and then his breathing became labored. Pancuronium bromide paralyzed his muscles, causing his respiration to halt. At 8:34 p.m., he was pronounced dead. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.